The sky turned from black to deep purple as the alien ship broke through the atmosphere. Samantha Wright shielded her eyes against the sudden brightness. The massive vessel hovered silently above the gathered crowd, casting an enormous shadow across the landing field. As head of xenolinguistics for the United Earth Council, Samantha had been preparing for this moment for years. The Lumeri had made contact 6 months ago, sending transmissions that took weeks to decode. Once they established basic communication, the aliens announced their intention to visit Earth, their reason to establish diplomatic relations with what they called an emerging species. Now, as their ship descended with barely a whisper, Samantha felt her heart race. This was history in the making, and she stood at its center. The other government officials around her shifted nervously, adjusting ties and smoothing down jackets. But Samantha remained still, her eyes fixed on the vessel. The ship settled on the landing pad, with surprising grace for something so massive, a sleek silver craft that seemed to shimmer with colors that had no names in human languages. The gathered crowd fell silent as a seam appeared in the hull. First came guards, or what Samantha assumed were guards, tall humanoid figures with skin that reflected light like polished metal. They moved with uncanny fluidity, as if gravity affected them differently. Their eyes, large and multifaceted, scanned the crowd with mechanical precision. Then she appeared. The Lumeri ambassador stepped from the ship, and Samantha forgot to breathe. The alien woman stood nearly 7 feet tall with a slender frame that seemed impossibly elegant. Her skin, unlike her guards, had a translucent quality that glowed from within, shifting between blues and purples with each movement. But it was her eyes that captured Samantha. They changed colors as she surveyed the crowd, moving from deep violet to amber to a startling emerald green. The ambassador wore what appeared to be a simple white garment that flowed around her like water, catching the light in hypnotic patterns. As she moved toward the human delegation, her steps were so graceful she appeared to float direct her. Powell stepped forward, extending his hand in greeting. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We are honored by your presence." The alien woman regarded his hand with curiosity before slowly extending her own. Her fingers were longer than human ones, with an extra joint and faint luminescent patterns traced across her skin. Lyra, she said, her voice melodious with strange harmonics that made Samantha shiver. Voice of the Stellar Council and emissary to Earth. "We come in peace and curiosity." Her English was perfect, if slightly formal. The translation devices had done their job. Well, Director Powell gestured to Samantha. "This is Dr. Samantha Wright, our chief linguist. She will be your liaison during your stay." Lyra turned those impossible eyes to Samantha, and something passed between them, a moment of recognition perhaps, or simply curiosity. The alien's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Dr. Wright," Lyra said, inclining her head. "I look forward to our discussions." Samantha found her voice at last. "It is my honor, Ambassador Lyra. I hope to learn much from you." The formalities continued as other officials were introduced, but Samantha hardly noticed. She could not take her eyes off the alien woman. There was something about her presence that commanded attention, not just her height or unusual appearance, but a sense of ancient wisdom that seemed to radiate from her. Later that evening, after the ambassador and her entourage had been shown to their accommodations, Samantha sat alone in her office reviewing the day's events. The initial meeting had gone well, but tomorrow the real work would begin. Formal negotiations, cultural exchange, scientific discussions. There was so much to learn, so much at stake. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. The door to her office slid open, revealing Lyra. The ambassador had to duck slightly to enter the room. "Forgive my intrusion." "Dr. Wright," the alien said, "but I found myself unable to rest. Too many new sensations." Samantha stood quickly. "Please come in and call me." "Samantha." Lyra moved into the room with that same fluid grace, her skin now pulsing with gentle blue light. She studied the books on Samantha's shelves, the photos on her desk, the view of the city beyond the window. "Your world is very loud," she said finally. "Even in silence, It screams with life. Is that uncomfortable for you? Samantha asked. Lyra made a gesture with her long fingers that might have been a shrug. Different. Our worlds are older, more settled. The cacophony of a young planet is unfamiliar, but not unpleasant. She turned to face Samantha. You have questions, many questions. I sense them radiating from you like heat. Samantha smiled ruefully. Is it that obvious? Lyra approached closer than would be customary in human interaction, but Samantha held her ground, eyeing. Species are empaths, Dr. Wright. We sense emotional states, particularly strong ones. Curiosity burns brightly in you. Samantha took a breath, absorbing this new information. So you can read my mind. Not thoughts. Lyra clarified, only emotional states, and only broadly unless there is physical contact. That explains why you hesitated before taking Director Powell's hand. The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. Yes, his anxiety was quite overwhelming. Samantha gestured to the chairs. May we sit? I do have questions if you're willing. They sat facing each other. Lyra folding her long limbs elegantly while Samantha leaned forward eagerly. Why Earth? She asked. The question had been burning in her mind since first contact. There must be countless worlds in the galaxy. Why choose us for contact? Lyra was silent for a moment, her skin shifting to a deeper blue. You are at a crucial point in your development, on the edge of interstellar travel, yet still bound to your planet. You have discovered much about the physical universe, but little about yourselves. The Council believes you could benefit from guidance. There are others then. Other species. Many. Lyra said. The galaxy teems with life, though much of it is not as you would recognize it. Sentient. Species that have achieved space travel number in the hundreds. Samantha tried to process this information. The implications were staggering. If there were hundreds of spacefaring civilizations, why had Earth remained isolated until now? As if reading her thoughts, Lyra continued. Most young species are left to develop on their own until they either achieve faster than light travel or destroy themselves. But occasionally exceptions are made. Your species is unique in ways that interest the Council, so Lyra studied her with those color-shifting eyes. You feel things so intensely. Your lives are brief, yet you experience emotions with a depth that many longer-lived species have lost. You create art and music that can move beings who have lived. For centuries you love with abandon and grieve with equal passion. This fascinates us. Samantha hadn't expected this answer. She had anticipated something about Earth's resources or strategic location, not humanity's emotional capacity. Your scientists, Lyra continued, have a saying that nothing in the universe is created or destroyed, merely transformed. But this is not entirely true. Consciousness creates something new. Emotion, particularly love, generates energy that defies conventional physics. This is why you interest us. The conversation continued late into the night, Samantha asking questions about Lumeri culture, their homeworld, their technology, while Lyra asked equally probing questions about human art, literature, family structures. The hours passed unnoticed as they exchanged ideas. When Lyra finally rose to leave, the first light of dawn was creeping through the window. I have kept you from rest, Lyra said, her skin now a soft lavender. I apologize. Samantha shook her head. No. This was worth every minute of lost sleep. The alien studied her for a moment. Then unexpectedly she extended her hand, palm up. May. Understanding that the empath was asking permission for direct emotional contact, Samantha hesitated only briefly before placing her palm against Lyra's. The sensation was unlike anything she had experienced. A gentle current seemed to flow between them, and Samantha felt a profound sense of peace mingled with curiosity and something else, something she couldn't quite name. It was as if for a moment her consciousness expanded, touching something ancient and wise, yet also childlike in its wonder. When Lyra withdrew her hand, Samantha felt strangely bereft. Thank you, the alien said softly. You have given me much to consider. Over the following weeks, Samantha and Lyra fell into a routine. During the day, they attended formal meetings where human and Lumeri representatives discussed everything from trade agreements to cultural exchange programs. But in the evenings, they would meet privately, sometimes in Samantha's office, sometimes walking the grounds of the diplomatic compound. Samantha learned that the Lumeri lived for centuries, aging much more slowly than humans, that their homeworld orbited a binary star system, resulting in their unusual relationship with light. Their skin not only absorbed and reflected light but converted it to energy, a form of photosynthesis that supplemented their diet. Lyra, in turn, absorbed human culture with remarkable enthusiasm. She developed a particular fondness for music, requesting recordings of everything from classical symphonies to rock and jazz. She watched old films, read poetry, and sampled foods from around the world, though her biology limited what she could safely consume. What began as professional curiosity gradually deepened into friendship. Samantha found herself looking forward to their evening conversations more than anything else. Her colleagues noticed, commenting on her preoccupation, but she brushed off their concerns. One evening, as they walked the perimeter of the compound, Lyra stopped, suddenly gazing up at the stars. "Do you see that bright star?" she asked, pointing to the right of your. Dawn broke over the diplomatic compound, casting long shadows across the ground. Samantha had barely slept, her mind replaying the previous night's encounter with Lyra. The touch of the aliens' hand, the connection that flowed between them, had left her feeling both exhilarated and terrified. What was happening between them, and what would it mean for the diplomatic mission? She dressed quickly, knowing she had an early briefing with Director Powell. The negotiation team needed to prepare for today's technology exchange. Discussions, a critical step in the developing relationship between Earth and the Lumeri. When she entered the conference room, Powell was already there, reviewing documents on his tablet. His expression was grim. "Right," he said, not looking up. "We have a situation." Samantha's stomach tightened. "What kind of situation?" Powell finally raised his eyes. "Security flagged some concerning interactions between you and the ambassador." The blood drained from Samantha's face. How did they? They had been alone. Last night had been private, or so she thought. "There are cameras throughout the compound," Powell said, as if reading her mind. "Standard security protocol. You know this. I didn't do anything wrong," she said defensively. "We're building rapport, trust. It's essential to the mission." Powell set down his tablet. "You were holding hands with an alien diplomat. The optics are problematic, to say the least." "It's not what you think," Samantha began, but Powell raised a hand to silence her. "I don't care what it is or isn't," he said. His voice was controlled, but she could hear the anger beneath it. "You are the chief linguist for this mission. Your job is to facilitate communication, not compromise it with inappropriate personal entanglements." Samantha felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and indignation. "The Lumeri are empaths," she explained. "Touch is how they communicate emotions. It's a cultural exchange." "Is that what the ambassador told you?" Powell asked, his voice heavy with skepticism. "And you believe her because aliens never lie? That was unfair." And Samantha felt her own anger rising. "What exactly are you implying?" Powell leaned forward. "They came here for a reason, right? And I doubt it's to hold hands and gaze at stars. Some of us wonder if their empathic abilities might include manipulation." "That's absurd," Samantha said. She had spent weeks with Lyra, learning about her culture, her people. There was no deception, their only genuine curiosity and a growing connection. "Regardless," Powell continued, "effective immediately, you are to maintain professional distance from the ambassador. Your interactions will be limited to official meetings with other team members present." "You can't do that," Samantha protested. "I'm the only one." "She's really opened up to we're making progress." "Exactly why we're concerned." Powell stood up, gathering his materials. "The Security Council feels you've become compromised. Your judgment may be impaired." "Refuse to accept this," Samantha said, standing as well. "Ill appeal directly to the council if necessary." Powell was unmoved. "Do what you need to do. In the meantime, follow orders or be removed from the mission entirely." Left her standing alone in the conference room. Her hands were shaking, partly from anger, partly from fear. Not fear for herself, but for what this meant for human Lumeri relations. If suspicion and paranoia were already taking root, what hope did they have for lasting peace? The day passed in a blur of meetings. Samantha watched from across the room as Lyra engaged with Earth scientists. Her movements seemed stiffer than usual, her skin a muted blue-gray that Samantha had come to recognize as discomfort several times. The ambassador glanced in her direction, questions in those shifting eyes, but Samantha was forced to look away. That evening, alone in her quarters, Samantha paced restlessly. She had been explicitly ordered to avoid private meetings with Lyra, but everything in her rebelled against the directive they had been making. Real progress, not just diplomatically, but in understanding each other's species on a fundamental level. Soft chime interrupted her thoughts. For a moment, her heart leapt, thinking it might be Lyra, but the voice that came through the intercom belonged to Maya Chen, one of the junior linguists on her team. Dr. Wright, there's a data transmission coming in from the Lumeri ship. It's addressed specifically to you. Patch it through to my personal terminal, Samantha said. Curiosity overriding protocol. Her screen flickered, then filled with symbols she recognized as Lumeri script. A moment later, they resolved into English. Samantha, the Gardens, midnight. The message was unsigned, but she knew who it was from. She should report this contact with the ambassador outside of sanctioned meetings. Violated her new restrictions, but something told her this was important. Lyra would not risk breaking protocol without reason. The compound gardens were beautiful. Even at night, genetically modified plants with bioluminescent properties glowed softly, creating pools of blue and green light along the pathways. Samantha moved silently through the shadows, avoiding the security cameras she now knew were watching. She found Lyra waiting beneath a large willow tree whose drooping branches created a curtain of privacy. The ambassador stood motionless, her tall form outlined against the glowing flora. Her skin pulsed with faint light blue, shifting to violet. Sorry about today, Samantha said, keeping her voice low. I was ordered to keep my distance. I know, Lyra replied. Her voice contained harmonics that conveyed sadness. I sensed your distress. I should not have asked you to come, but there is something you must know. What is it? Lyra moved closer, her eyes now a deep amber. I have received new instructions from the council. They are concerned about recent developments. Samantha's heart sank. The Lumeri, too, were having doubts. What developments exactly? Reports have reached them of growing resistance to our presence on Earth, Lyra explained. Small but vocal groups calling for our expulsion. They fear we represent a threat to human autonomy. That's just a fringe minority, Samantha protested. Most people are excited about the possibilities contact represents. Lyra made a gesture Samantha had learned indicated acknowledgement. Nevertheless, the council is concerned. They have accelerated our timeline. I am to complete preliminary negotiations within the week and depart a week. Samantha felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. That's impossible. There's too much to discuss, too many details to work out. I argued the same, Lyra said, but they believe a prolonged presence risks escalation. If there is violence, it would set back relations for generations. Samantha stepped closer, her earlier caution forgotten. Is that the only reason? Lyra was silent. For a long moment, her skin shifting through shades of purple before settling on a deep indigo. There were also concerns about you and me, about our developing connection. I knew it, Samantha said bitterly. They think the same thing Powell does, that we're too close, that it's inappropriate. Lyra reached out, her long fingers hovering just above Samantha's shoulder, not quite touching. Not inappropriate, unprecedented. My people have made contact with dozens of species over thousands of years, but never has there been a personal connection like this. It frightens them. Samantha felt a confusing mix of emotions: pride that what they shared was unique, sadness that it was seen as a threat, anger at the forces conspiring to separate them. So what's the alternative? She asked. We just say goodbye, pretend this never happened? I don't know, Lyra admitted. The skin around her eyes darkened, a sign of distress. In 800 years, I have never faced this situation. My duty to my people has always been clear, but now she did touch Samantha, then a light brush of fingers against her cheek. The familiar current flowed between them, but now Samantha could sense Lyra's confusion, her conflict, the depth of feeling that had developed between them. We have 1 week, Samantha said, covering Lyra's hand with her own. We'll figure something out later. That night, alone in her quarters, Samantha could not sleep. Her mind raced with possibilities, all of them difficult. 1 week to find a solution that would satisfy both governments, that would allow the Lumeri to maintain a presence on Earth, that would let her and Lyra explore whatever was growing between them. She began to research, working through the night, the history of first contact protocols from science fiction. Earth's own contingency plans developed long before actual aliens arrived. The Lumeri records Lyra had shared about their interactions. With other species, there had to be a precedent, something they could use by morning. She had a plan. Not a good one, perhaps, but better than nothing. She sent a secure message to Lyra, asking to meet during the scheduled cultural exchange session where their interaction would seem official. The day dragged until finally, she found herself in the same room as the ambassador, both of them surrounded by others reviewing Earth art and literature that had been selected to represent human creativity. The pieces had been carefully chosen to showcase the best of humanity, from Renaissance paintings to modern holographic installations. Lyra stood before a replica of Van Gogh's Starry Night, her eyes a brilliant blue that almost matched the painting. As Samantha approached, she spoke without turning. Your people saw the stars differently than mine. This artist he captured something we have never perceived, despite having traveled among them for millennia. Samantha nodded, keeping her voice professional. For the benefit of those around them, he saw the emotional truth rather than the physical reality. Yes, Lyra's skin rippled with appreciation. Exactly that. When the others had moved on to the next exhibit, Samantha whispered, I have an idea, but it's complicated, and probably against about 50 regulations. Lyra's lips curved slightly. Your emotional state suggests excitement despite your concerns. Tell me. 3 months passed since the main Lumeri delegation departed Earth, leaving Lyra and her small team behind. Winter turned to spring, and with it came new growth, both in the gardens surrounding the diplomatic compound and in the relationship between Earth and its visitors. Samantha had been officially appointed as Lyra's cultural liaison, a position that gave her legitimate reason to spend time with the alien ambassador. Their days were filled with meetings, exhibitions, museums, and cultural sites. Each new experience seemed to delight Lyra, whose curiosity about humanity was boundless. But it was their evenings together that Samantha treasured most. Sometimes they would simply talk, sharing stories and ideas. Other times they would listen to music. Lyra had developed a particular fondness for classical piano pieces, claiming the harmonics resonated with Lumeri neural patterns in pleasing ways. Their connection deepened with each passing day. The touch sharing that had once seemed so strange to Samantha now felt natural, even necessary, like returning to a place she'd always belonged but never known existed. What they shared had no name in human language. It was friendship, certainly, but also something more. A meeting of minds across the gulf of evolution and experience, something precious and entirely new. The political situation, however, had grown increasingly complicated. While many humans embraced the Lumeri presence, others viewed it with suspicion. A vocal minority, led by a charismatic senator named Patricia Kelly, had begun holding rallies denouncing the aliens as infiltrators. Their slogan, Earth for Humans, appeared on signs and social media with alarming frequency. Director Powell had called Samantha to his office that morning to discuss security concerns. The protests are growing, he said, showing her footage of a recent demonstration outside the compound. We've increased patrols, but I'm concerned. Samantha watched the angry faces on the screen with a sinking feeling. How many are there? Powell sighed. Too many, and they're getting bolder. Senator Kelly's rhetoric isn't helping. She's calling for congressional hearings on the alien presence, claiming national security concerns. His being paranoid. She said, though. The knot of worry in her stomach suggested otherwise. The Lumeri have shared more technology in 3 months than we'd have developed in 50 years. Medical advances, energy solutions. They've been nothing but beneficial. Powell looked tired. The lines around his eyes deeper than she'd remembered. Don't be naive, right? There are always those who fear change, who see difference as threat. And they have powerful friends. The implied warning was clear. The political winds could shift, and if they did, the Lumeri mission, including Lyra, could be in jeopardy. Later that day, Samantha found Lyra in the botanical garden, a recent addition to the compound designed to showcase Earth flora. The ambassador stood before a flowering cherry tree, her skin shifting through delicate shades of pink that almost matched the blossoms. Beautiful, she said as Samantha approached. On my world, flowers communicate through chemical signatures and electromagnetic pulses. They sing to each other across great distances, but they lack this visual beauty. Samantha wanted to enjoy the moment, to share Lyra's wonder at something as simple as cherry blossoms. But the morning's meeting weighed heavily on her. We need to talk, she said. The situation is getting complicated. Lyra turned, those ever-changing eyes toward her now shifting to a more somber blue. I know I have been monitoring your information networks. The one called Kelly speaks against us with increasing vehemence. You can access our networks, Samantha asked, surprised Lyra. Made the gesture she'd come to recognize as apologetic regret. I should have mentioned it. Your encryption is rather primitive by our standards. We consider it basic observation rather than intrusion. Samantha shook her head, a small smile despite her concern. There's probably a diplomatic incident in there somewhere, but we have bigger problems. Senator Kelly is pushing for restrictions on Lumeri movement. She wants your team confined to the compound, possibly even sent home. I expected resistance, Lyra said, her voice calm. Some fear is natural when encountering the unknown. This is more than fear. Samantha insisted it's organized, it's purposeful, and it's gaining momentum. Lyra was silent for a moment, her skin darkening to deeper blues. Would it help if I spoke directly to your media to explain our intentions? It's risky. Samantha considered Kelly and her supporters would undoubtedly twist anything Lyra said, but we need to counter their narrative somehow. That evening, they drafted a statement, together carefully worded to address human concerns while emphasizing the benefits of continued cooperation. Lyra would give her first public interview, presenting the Lumeri as partners, not invaders. The broadcast was scheduled for the following week. As they worked late into the night, Samantha found herself watching Lyra. The alien moved with that same fluid grace that had first captivated her months ago, but now there was something different, something more human in her gestures. The way she tilted her head when considering a difficult question, the small smile that played at the corners of her mouth when amused. Have I changed so much? Lyra asked, catching Samantha's gaze. Samantha felt her cheeks warm, embarrassed at being caught staring. A little. You seem more comfortable with human expressions. Lyra extended her hand, an invitation Samantha had come to recognize and treasure. When their palms met, the familiar current flowed between them, but with new depth and complexity. I have been studying you, Lyra said softly. Not just your species, but you specifically, the way emotions move through you. The patterns of your thoughts, they are beautiful, complex, like music. Samantha felt something shift between them, a deepening of connection that both thrilled and terrified her. The diplomatic implications alone were staggering, but more than that was the personal reality. She was falling in love with a being from another world. Is this why the council was concerned? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because this kind of connection changes everything. Lyra's skin, flushed with bands of gold and rose colors Samantha had learned, indicated affection and hope. Yes, our histories warned of this possibility. That true understanding between different consciousnesses could lead to attachment to change. And is that so terrible? No, Lyra's free hand rose to touch Samantha's face. But it is irreversible. Once begun, this bond evolves, becomes deeper, more complex. In my culture, such connections are lifelong. The word struck Samantha with sudden force. Lifelong. For a human, that meant decades. For a Lumeri, it meant centuries. You will live far longer than I will, she said. The realization painful. Lyra's eyes darkened to deep indigo. Yes, that is the nature of our species. But it does not diminish what we share. It only makes each moment more precious. The interview was broadcast globally. Lyra, poised and articulate, explained Lumeri culture, their reasons for contacting Earth, their hopes for ongoing cooperation. She addressed fears directly, acknowledging the natural caution humans might feel, while gently suggesting that difference need not mean danger. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Public opinion polls showed a significant shift with increased support for the Lumeri presence. Senator Kelly's rallies began to draw smaller crowds. Her demands for hearings were postponed. For a brief, beautiful moment, it seemed as though understanding might prevail. That illusion shattered. 3 days later, Samantha was awakened in the middle of the night by alarms blaring throughout the compound. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridors, As she pulled on clothes and rushed toward the Lumari quarters, she found chaos-armed security. Personnel rushing through hallways, shouts, and the acrid smell of smoke. Director Powell stood in the central atrium barking orders. "Right," he called when he saw her. "Thank God. Where's the ambassador?" "I don't know," she said, panic rising. "What happened, Breach?" In the East Wing, Powell explained someone got through the perimeter. At least 2 explosives detonated. The Lumari physician is dead. 2 others injured. Samantha felt the blood drain from her face. "Lyra. Where is Lyra?" Powell shook his head. "We're searching." Now Samantha didn't wait for permission. She ran pushing past security toward the ambassador's private quarters, her heart pounding in her ears. Please let her be safe. Please. The door to Lyra's quarters stood open. Inside, furniture was overturned, and there was a dark stain on the floor that Samantha realized with horror was blood. Not red like human blood, but a luminescent blue that still glowed faintly in the dim light. "Lyra," she called, desperately searching the room. The attached garden, the study, no answer. A security officer appeared in the doorway. "Dr. Wright, you need to come with me now. The compound is being evacuated." "Where is she?" Samantha demanded. "Where is the ambassador?" The officer avoided her eyes. "We don't know, Mom." There are signs of struggle. "We think she may have been taken." The next hours passed in a blur. Samantha found herself in a secure facility surrounded by government officials, all asking questions she couldn't answer. No, she didn't know who would target Lyra. No, she had no idea where they might have taken her. Yes, the ambassador had been concerned about growing hostility, but hadn't feared for her physical safety. The attack was claimed by a group calling themselves Earth First. Their message was brief and chilling. The alien infiltration ends now. Humanity stands alone. Search teams combed the area surrounding the compound. Security footage was analyzed, showing masked figures breaching the perimeter, disabling alarms and entering the Lumari quarters. But there was no sign of where they had taken Lyra, or if she was even still alive.
1 year passed since the Lumari departure. 1 year of silence. 1 year of Samantha Wright working tirelessly to change human perception of alien contact. She had been promoted to Director of Xenocultural Relations, a new position created specifically
to prepare for future extraterrestrial interactions. But the title felt hollow without actual aliens to relate to. Without Lyra, the diplomatic compound, once bustling with activity, now stood largely empty. A monument to what might have been. Samantha still visited regularly, walking the gardens where she and Lyra had spent so many evenings. Sometimes she imagined she could still feel echoes of the aliens' presence, but it was wishful thinking. Nothing more. She had thrown herself into her work publishing papers on Lumari culture, giving lectures at universities around the world, fighting against the fear and misinformation spread by groups like Earth First. Public opinion was slowly shifting. Thanks in part to the technological advances the Lumari had shared before their departure, medical breakthroughs, energy innovations, materials science. Each new development reminded humanity of what further cooperation might bring. But at night, alone in her apartment, Samantha would look up at the stars and wonder, where was Lyra now? What distant worlds was she visiting? Was she thinking of Earth, of her? The Lumari had left no way to communicate, no promise of when or if they might return. Only Lyra's words, that which connects, cannot be truly separated. Words Samantha clung to on her darkest days. She was reviewing reports in her office when Kelly, her assistant, knocked on the door. "Dr. Wright," she said, "there's something you should see." Samantha looked up from her tablet. "What is it?" Kelly handed her a different tablet. The astronomical survey from last night. The La Paz Observatory picked up something unusual. Samantha studied the images. A small object moving through the outer solar system. Its trajectory was strange, making adjustments that natural. Object simply didn't make its artificial, she said, her heart beginning to race. Could it be? The team thinks so, Kelly confirmed. Definitely not natural and not one of ours. How long until it reaches Earth? At current speed, about 3 days. But that's assuming. It maintains course, it's been accelerating. Samantha stood gathering her things. Call the Security Council. Tell them we may have contact. The next 3 days were a flurry of activity. Observatories around the world tracked the approaching object. Its configuration was unlike the previous Lumeri vessel, smaller and differently shaped, but its technology signature was unmistakable. The visitors were returning. Global security forces went on high alert. Military assets were repositioned, not out of aggression, but caution. The Earth-first attack had left everyone wary of what might happen if extremists targeted the returning aliens. Samantha barely slept. She coordinated preparations for the arrival, worked with media teams to manage public perception, and tried unsuccessfully to calm her own racing thoughts. Was Lyra aboard? Did she come back as promised? Or was this a different mission entirely? The vessel entered Earth orbit exactly 3 days after its discovery. It made no attempt to hide its presence, broadcasting a simple message on open channels. Request permission to land coordinates followed, showing a landing zone within the old diplomatic compound. Samantha stood at the edge of the landing area, surrounded by security personnel and government officials. The sky was clear blue, the spring air warm on her skin, but she felt cold with anticipation. The ship appeared first as a glint of silver in the sky, then a shape growing larger as it descended. Unlike the massive vessel of the first contact, this one was sleek and small, clearly designed for speed rather than capacity. It settled on the landing pad with barely a sound, steam rising where its heat met the cool morning air. A seam appeared in the hull, then an opening and a single figure emerged. Tall, slender skin that captured and reflected light in impossible ways, eyes that shifted color with emotion. It was Lyra, but different. Her movements seemed more deliberate, more human. Her traditional flowing garments replaced, with something that resembled Earth fashion though with distinctly alien elements. Samantha stepped forward, breaking protocol, unable to contain herself any longer. Lyra, she called. The ambassador turned those incredible eyes, focusing immediately on Samantha. Emotions flashed across them too quickly to identify, before settling on a brilliant gold Samantha Wright. The alien said, her voice containing those same musical harmonics that had haunted Samantha's dreams for a year. I have returned as promised. Official greetings were exchanged, handshakes and formal welcomes, but Samantha barely heard them. Her focus remained on Lyra, seeking signs of change, signs of remembrance. The ambassador participated in the ceremonies with grace but maintained a careful distance, her expression neutral, her skin a calm blue that revealed nothing of her thoughts. Only when the formalities concluded did Lyra approach her. They stood in the same garden where they had said goodbye a year earlier. You look well, the alien said, her eyes now shifting between green and blue. You have achieved much in my absence. Samantha studied her, trying to read the subtle cues of Lumeri expression. It's been difficult. Work helps, but I've missed you. Every day Lyra's skin flushed, briefly with rose before returning to blue. I too have found the separation challenging. There was something different in her manner, a reserve that hadn't been there before. Samantha felt a stab of uncertainty. Had things changed between them? Had the connection faded with distance and time? Why did you come back? She asked. Is the council reconsidering contact? Lyra was silent for a moment, her eyes darkening. The council did not send. Me, Samantha blinked. What? I came alone. Lyra explained. My ship is personal, not diplomatic. I resigned my position with the Stellar Council. You resigned? Samantha couldn't believe what she was hearing. The position was prestigious, one Lyra had held for centuries. Why would she give that up? The ambassador no longer. An ambassador, it seemed, made a gesture Samantha recognized as indicating a complex decision. I could not continue representing my people while harboring such conflict. My duty was clear. Maintain distance, observe, report. But my experience here changed. Me changed my perspective on what matters. She stepped closer, her skin beginning to pulse with more vibrant colors. The council believes humanity needs more time to overcome fear of difference. They may be correct, but I discovered I no longer had time. I found myself unwilling to wait centuries for attitudes to change. Not when my connection to this world, to you, grows weaker with each passing day. Samantha felt her throat tighten with emotion. You came back for me. Lyra extended her hand palm, up in the gesture that had once meant so much between them. Hesitantly, Samantha placed her palm against the alien's. The connection rushed between them stronger than before. A flood of emotions, memories, sensations. Samantha gasped at the intensity of it, feeling Lyra's loneliness during their separation, her determination to return her fear that what they shared might have faded. "I came back for many reasons," Lyra said softly. "To continue learning about your fascinating species, to share knowledge that might benefit both our peoples. But yes, I returned primarily because of you, because the connection we began must either grow or diminish, and I could not bear the thought of losing it." For the first time in a year, Samantha felt truly whole. The emptiness that had haunted her since Lyra's departure filled with light and possibility, but questions remained. "Your resignation," she said. "What does that mean? Are you here permanently?" Lyra's skin rippled with bands of gold and blue indicating both hope and uncertainty. "I am here for as long as Earth will have me. As for permanence." Samantha pulled back slightly. "My lifespan is not yours. You will die while I remain. How can we build anything meaningful with that truth between us?" Lyra touched Samantha's face, her fingers cool and smooth. "I have been researching a solution. During my absence, I consulted with our medical scientists. The Lumeri have technologies that can extend life, not indefinitely, but significantly. Would that interest you?" Samantha stared at her, trying to process what Lyra was suggesting. Life extension. The implications were staggering, not just for her, but potentially for all humanity. "It's not immortality," Lyra clarified. "Perhaps another century. Nothing more, but enough time that what we build together need not be cut short." "A century," Samantha repeated. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. To live so long, to see the world change around her, while everyone she knew grew old and died. But with Lyra beside her, "Is that even possible for a human?" she asked. "Our biology is so different." Lyra nodded. "The principles are universal. Cell degradation, telomere shortening. We have been studying human genetics. Your scientists are not far from similar breakthroughs. I simply accelerated the research." This was bigger than just the two of them, Samantha realized. If such technology were shared, it could transform human society for better or worse. The ethical implications alone were massive. "Does your council know you're offering this?" she asked. Lyra made the gesture indicating negation. "They do not approve of my return. They certainly would not approve of sharing life extension technology, but I am no longer bound by their restrictions. The choice is mine and yours." Samantha took a deep breath, trying to think clearly despite the emotion swirling through her. "It's not just about us," she said. "This kind of technology, it would change everything." "I understand," Lyra replied. "Such power must be wielded carefully. Perhaps it begins with one with you. Then over time, if your society proves ready, it could be shared more widely. Always with ethical constraints. Always with wisdom." 20 years passed in the blink of an eye. Samantha Wright, now 55, looked barely 40. The life extension treatments Lyra had shared with her worked subtly but effectively, slowing the aging process without obvious external signs. The two of them had settled into a life together that few could understand. A relationship that transcended conventional definitions. The world had changed dramatically in those 2 decades. The initial fear and suspicion surrounding Lyra's presence had gradually given way to acceptance, then curiosity, then admiration. The former ambassador had become something of a celebrity, though she avoided public attention when possible. Her insights into astronomy, physics, and biology had accelerated human science by generations. Samantha, too, had flourished. Her work in xenocultural relations had expanded into a global initiative, preparing humanity for eventual wider contact with the cosmos. Universities now offered degrees in comparative extraterrestrial studies, a field she had pioneered, but it was their personal journey that meant the most to both of them. The deep connection that had begun during those first touch-sharing sessions had evolved into something profound and unique. Their minds had grown increasingly, attuned to one another until they could sense each other's emotional states even at a distance. Not telepathy, but something equally intimate. A resonance of consciousness that bridged the gap between their different biologies. They had built a home, together. A modernist structure of glass and sustainable materials nestled in the mountains with views of both forest and sky. The design incorporated elements of both Earth and Lumari architecture, creating spaces that felt both alien and familiar, a physical manifestation of the bridge they had built between their worlds. This particular evening they sat on their terrace watching the sunset, Lyra's skin shifting through shades of orange and gold in harmony with the changing sky. Her appearance had altered subtly over the years, adopting more human mannerisms while maintaining her essential alienness. She had never tried to become human, just as Samantha had never tried to become Lumari. Instead, they had created something new together, a shared culture of two. "I received a message today," Lyra said, breaking the comfortable silence. Her voice still contained those musical harmonics that had first captivated Samantha, though the alien had learned to modulate them for human ears. "From the Stellar Council." Samantha turned to her surprised. The Council had maintained minimal contact with Lyra since her resignation, 2 decades earlier, occasionally requesting information, but largely leaving her to her self-imposed exile on Earth. "What did they want?" "They are considering re-establishing formal contact with Earth," Lyra said. Her skin rippled with patterns indicating complex emotions. "The observation period is ending. They believe humanity may be ready." Samantha absorbed this news, with mixed feelings. For years she had worked toward this goal, preparing humans for renewed alien contact, but she had grown accustomed to having Lyra to herself, without the complications of interstellar politics. "Did they explain why now?" she asked. Lyra made the gesture indicating affirmation. "Your species has matured in ways they find promising. The reduction in global conflicts, the advances in sustainable technology, the growing acceptance of difference, the unified approach to climate stabilization, all suggest a civilization evolving beyond tribal thinking." It was true. Earth had changed dramatically, partly due to Lyra's influence and the technologies she had selectively shared, but mostly through humanity's own determination to survive and thrive. The existential challenges of the previous century had forced cooperation, innovations, and a gradual shift in values. "And what do they expect from you?" Samantha asked. Sensing there was more to the message, Lyra was silent for a moment, her skin darkening to deeper blues. "They wish me to serve as intermediary, to prepare the way I would be reinstated to my former position." Samantha felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Would that mean leaving Earth, returning to her people? As if sensing her concern, Lyra reached out, taking Samantha's hand, the familiar current of emotional sharing flowing between them. "I have not yet responded," she said. "I wanted to discuss it with you first. This decision affects us both." Relief flooded through Samantha, though questions remained. "What do you want?" she asked. Lyra's eyes shifted through colors, settling on a swirl of green and gold. "In 20 years, my perspective has changed dramatically. I am no longer the same being who first arrived on your world. I have become something neither fully Lumari nor human, but a bridge between. I cannot simply return to my former role as if this transformation never occurred." She squeezed Samantha's hand gently. "Yet I cannot deny that renewed contact would benefit both our peoples. There is so much potential for mutual growth. Your species has much to offer mine, just as we have knowledge to share with you." They talked long into the night, weighing options and implications, the personal against the universal, their own happiness against the greater good. As the first stars appeared above them, they reached a decision together. Lyra would accept the Council's offer, but with conditions. She would serve as intermediary, but would remain based on Earth with Samantha. Her primary residence would not change. The Council would need to send representatives to her, rather than expecting her to return to their ship. The Council did not immediately respond to her counteroffer. When they finally did, their message was brief. They accepted her terms but requested a preliminary meeting aboard their vessel, which had entered the outer solar system. They wished to discuss protocols for renewed contact. Face to face, a smaller ship arrived 2 weeks later to transport Lyra to the council vessel. Samantha watched it land in the meadow beside their home, anxiety tightening her chest. It would be the first time since Lyra's return that they would be separated. "Must you go alone?" she asked as Lyra prepared to depart. The alien turned those impossible eyes to her, now a deep indigo. "It would be best I must speak frankly with the council about many things, some of which involve confidential Lumeri matters." Samantha nodded, understanding, but not liking it. "How long will you be gone?" 3 days at most, Lyra promised. "Then I will return and we will begin the work of building this bridge together." They embraced Samantha, feeling the familiar warmth and subtle electric current that always accompanied Lumeri touch after. 20 years, it still felt miraculous, still sent shivers along her spine. "Be safe," she whispered. "Always," Lyra replied. Samantha watched the transport rise silently into the sky until it was just a glint of silver against the blue. Then nothing. She returned to their empty house, feeling the absence of Lyra's presence like a physical thing. The spaces they shared now seemed too large, too quiet. She tried to focus on work, reviewing proposals for the new Xenocultural Institute that would open next year, but her mind kept returning to Lyra, to the council, to what this new phase might mean for them. 3 days stretched into 4, then 5. No word from Lyra. No communication from the council vessel. Samantha tried not to worry. There could be many explanations for the delay. Diplomatic discussions often ran long, and communication across vast distances was complicated, even with advanced technology. On the 6th day, as she paced their terrace, scanning the sky for any sign of an approaching ship, she noticed something strange. A shimmer in the air, like heat distortion, but more pronounced, more purposeful. It coalesced, gradually taking form until a figure stood before her. Not Lyra, but clearly Lumeri. Tall, with the same luminescent skin, the same too fluid grace. But male, or at least masculine in aspect. His skin a steady silver blue without the emotional color shifts that characterized Lyra Samantha Wright. He said, his voice containing even more complex harmonics than Lyra's. "I am Terran Assistant 2. The council, where is Lyra?" Samantha demanded, dispensing with formalities. "Where have you been keeping her?" The Lumeri made a gesture she didn't recognize. "She is well," he assured her. "But there have been complications." "What complications?" Terran seemed to consider his words carefully, his eyes shifting through cooler shades of blue and green. "The council has concerns about the nature of her connection to you, about the technologies she has shared without authorization. I might add." Samantha felt anger rising. "They've known about us for 20 years. Why is it suddenly a problem now?" The alien's skin rippled with patterns indicating discomfort or possibly disagreement. It has always been a concern, but recent developments have elevated that concern. "The council has reviewed her memories." "Her memories," Samantha repeated. "What does that mean?" "Lumeri memory is not like human memory," Terran explained. "We can share experiences directly. When Lyra rejoined the council, they performed a standard reconciliation procedure. Accessing her experiences during her time on Earth privacy violation was too human a concept to apply to Lumeri consciousness. Samantha knew. Their communal nature meant different boundaries, different expectations. But still, the idea of others viewing their intimate moments, their private conversations, made her deeply uncomfortable. "And what did they find in these memories?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "The life extension technology," Terran said. "The genetic modifications she performed on you. These were not hers to share. They violate our most sacred protocols regarding intervention in developing species." Samantha crossed her arms. "I am not a species. I am an individual. And it was my choice."